Hi, Nick Collier here, and this is my shop. Come join me. We'll have some fun. Well, here we are again. It's a Saturday morning into February 2021. COVID is still around. I'm up in the shop having a good time. And we've got a project here that I've been actually thinking about for, I don't know, a year or two. I mean, it's kind of been on the back burner because it's not a critical thing. But just lately, I saw it as, okay, I need to put this on the front burner and let's get moving on this. So I'm going to bring you in closer. We're going to have a look at the job and see what we got. So what we have is a piece of half round. Well, it's not exactly half round. It's more like, 3/8 of a round. But it is it's considered half round. And what we have to do is put groove marks in this thing, almost all the way across, like maybe from here to here. Doesn't have to catch this last little part, but it definitely has to catch most of this face and along the sides a little bit. And the way I've dealt with it in the past is once I set it up, and it comes in literally I weld 4 of these together, and it's kind of a striker plate with grippers. And so what I've done is welded those together, and I'll show you a picture of that now. And then I come in with the cutoff saw and just put little grooves in. But unfortunately, the grooves that I put in only kiss maybe that much. And I need to come around this corner just a little bit. Well, not a corner, but come around the round just a little bit more. And so I've been thinking about it, and how am I going to do this and make it work? So at one point I thought, okay, just put 2 of these together, put it in the lathe, and just run a single point thread down this, and then index it out and run a single point thread and index it and run a single point thread and index it, and so on and so forth. But then I realized this isn't half round. This is about 1/3 of a round. So by the time I put a full round in there, it's going to be more egg shaped than round. So that, toss that one out the window. Now, what's next? Okay, so the other day I came up with, how about, threading would be the best approach. But then I thought, well, how about we make a negative of this shape and put little spikes in there to kind of indent into this, and then put it in the shop press and press into that and get it solid. I mean, get grooves in there. Well, that wasn't going to exactly work. I mean, it was the next step in the process. And then I went, well, wait a second. The easiest way to do that would be to drill a hole in a piece of metal and then thread that hole. And so then I would have these nice grooves all the way across, and then split that piece of metal in half, so that, and I'm going to set this on the table, so that when we put it in the shop press, we have a piece of kind of a shape, and then press on the shop press, and it will indent these little grooves in there. And it doesn't matter that it's slightly turned because it's threaded. It only matters that it's got these little grippers that that hang on to stuff. So I thought, okay, well, that's a good idea. But of course, if we use anything other than some pretty solid steel, you know, some exotic steel, it's going to lose the grippers pretty quickly because, you know, pressing into this is not going to work. So I don't know, about 5 years ago, when I first started doing YouTube videos, I made a set of triple clamps for a Harley guy, and he wanted 4140, which made the triple clamps incredibly expensive. And not only for the material, but for the effort of cutting it. I must have went through 5 mill bits cutting the shape, and these were scraps out of that shape. And turns out it's 4140. And I like to stamp into that because, you know, 6 months later, a year later, you look at the piece of metal, you go, well, I don't know, what is it? So we've got that. We're going to come in and cut. So what I want to do is I want to come in here and cut my little groove. So I'm going to take 2 pieces off of this, like 1-inch piece, and then mill the ends, sandwich them together, maybe even weld the ends so that it's one piece, put it in the lathe, and drill a hole in it, and thread that hole, and then split it back apart again, and we'll have the threaded hole. And then we're going to go ahead and heat treat it as best we can. And then I think we might have something. And we'll have 2 pieces to work with. So if the heat treatment doesn't quite work out, I can send the second piece in and have it heat treated, you know, up to some, you know, pretty solid stuff like Rockwell 65 or something. So anyhow, we'll play with that. First thing we got to do is take these odd shapes, put it in the saw, and cut some pieces out of it. So let's go over to the being saw. A weird ass shape, we're not going to be able to hold on to this with the standard clamp. So we've put a couple of C clamps on there, and we're about halfway cut through. So let's continue and cut this thing through. All right, there's our first piece. Take the C clamps off. Let's move it on down. And I've had this saw this Carolina saw for, I don't know, 5-6 years now. And the cylinder back there, I don't think you can see it. This cylinder back there never worked. It was just a piece of crap. So I took it off and used counterweights and everything like that. And here about a week or so ago, I had a little extra money, and I thought, you know what, let's just buy a new cylinder, see if it works better. Oh man, it works so good. I should have done it years ago. I mean, the whole design of the saw is around that cylinder. Okay, so I think we've got a shape there. Now all we have to do is clamp it. That looks pretty good. I think I can live with that. Okay, as you can tell, this saw cut wasn't exactly a square cut. So we're going to go in and square up these these surfaces and go from there. Okay, they're evenly flat, and so I think what I want to do is flip them over and go ahead and flatten the back side too, because that's where the press will be pressing down, and we want it to be square, otherwise it may tweak and torque. So first thing I'm going to do is go over and pull off the burrs from the edges of these, and we got it all cleaned off. We're all set to plane off these two top surfaces, and we should be ready to rip. Okay, so we've got our two pieces in the forejaw. We've found center, and we confirmed it by spinning the lathe and running a tool bit in there and just catching that center. And so we are at center. Now what we want to do is put a center drill in. Whoops, that's got a broken tip. That's not going to work. Well, it's not broken, but I'll spin it around anyhow. Okay. All right, we got through, so now we're going to go to I'd say a 1/2 inch. Our final goal is 5/8, maybe. And we'll only know that once we get there. Okay, we got ourselves a 1/2 inch hole. On 5/8, we're going to slow this down a bit. I think I want to come in here and kind of pre-cut this so that it's not real harsh on the drill bit. Okay, we got our 5/8 hole. This thing should slide right in there fairly easily. Well, you know, the edges are a little bit wider, so it's gonna go in there, no sweat. And it's a 5/8 hole rather than a smaller hole allowing for the threads. I want the threads to be just a little bit bigger so that when they come down on this little bar, that most of the energy goes into this amount here, and it just a little bit of energy goes into the side, because that's where the most pressure is going to be. So we're going to work with this 5/8 and get put a single point that in there. How I'm going to do it, I'm not sure, because that's a pretty steep pretty deep thread, but we'll figure it out, and that's going to happen later, because I'm going to have a little bit of lunch. Okay, after about 2-hour setup, mostly because I didn't have a boring bar this long or this size, we are all ready to go, and what I'm going to do is go in and clean up that hole first, and then we're going to cut some threads. Now what I have here is, and I don't know if you can see, it's pretty small, is not 60 degrees but more like 45 degrees, because what I want, and I'm going to show you a sketch. What I want is this thing to be embossed with a sharp edge to the top, and we're going to kind of sketch that. All right. And so the sharp edge wants to be right there, so that it can, I'm sorry, the dull edge wants to be right here that embosses down, and the sharp edge wants to be kind of like this. For the, well, that's upside down. It actually wants to go like that, so that when this embosses into this, no, the other way. Okay, so it goes this way. When this embosses into this, it leaves a sharp point up here, which is what we want as a gripper. So first thing we're going to do is bore this out and get it cleaned up, and then we're going to go back in and probably do like a, oh, I don't know, 3 threads, no, not 3, more like 8 threads per inch or something like that. So let's get started. Oh, we're going the other way. Alright, let's get a flashlight in there and see what kind of mess we made. Looks pretty good. I mean, it's rough. Yeah, but it cleaned up the hole just fine. So I think what I want to do is I want to take this all the way in and come back out, and that way I'm not freaking out as we get close to the holder. Okay, well, I've abandoned all hopes of doing a single point. So we were coming in here with, because the boring bar was too big for the hole, and it kept scraping on the bottom, and I didn't want to cut the boring bar anymore. And so now we've come in with a 3/4 tap, and we're gonna go in with that and get ourselves, at least test this theory out. I mean, hell, this may not work, but at least we're gonna give it a try, and If it works, we may come back and put a sharper point on it. If it doesn't work, well, hell, it was worth the try, right? Right. Looks like it's cutting just fine. Now we're into the a little more difficult part. Bigger crescent wrench, that's what I say. Looks like it's gonna do just fine though. Okay, it's starting to bind up pretty bad. I mean, it is at 3/4. Let's get a little more oil on it. Oops. Let's bang the camera first. Man, this 4140 is nothing to mess with. I'm telling you. Okay, enough of that noise. Let's get the baby crescent out. Alright, let's see what we got now. Yeah, more leverage. That's what we needed. I mean, we're almost through. I'm telling you, it's taken every bit of strength with this big crescent wrench to run this thing in. I mean, it is going. Okay, just to give you an idea of what kind of leverage we're talking about here. This whole thing, it looks like maybe we punched through. No. It's like I get an 1/8 of a turn each time. There's my wife. I guess we're going for a walk. So I'll be back. Okay, had a nice walk with the wife. We talked about things that matter, and now back to work. Okay. Okay, it's starting to loosen up. Finally. All right, we did it. I can't believe it. Now let's take it out and see what we got. Okay, there's our piece. Look at that. Not too bad. Okay, it's up a bit high. I think it's going to do just fine though. Once we're going to have to cut some of the face down here. Let's get rid of some of this oil. It might actually do what we need it to do. Just a little bit. So we probably need to take about, oh, I don't know, 50 thousandths off of the top of that in order to get it right. So let's go over to the mill and take that 50 thousandths. Well, okay, one of the few times where the mill is actually set up and I don't have to do any setup, just drop the piece in and go. All right, so. Well, I'd say, well, we'll give it a try there. We could always come down a little bit more. So let's take it over to the press and see how this thing presses. All right, let's give her a try. Drop it down. Well, it did something. Now getting it back out. Let's take it over to the bin. All right. Let's see if we can just kind of get in here and pry this thing out. Of course, we're going to have to find a better solution to get it out. If at all. There we go. Well, it didn't do much. Did it crush these down? No, it didn't crush those down. All right, so we'll take another 20 or so off of that. Let's try it again. We took 20 thousandths off of it. It's still not pressing down on it. This might actually be a lost cause. But let's have a look at it and see. maybe with a 50-ton press it might do it. Oh, fell out. Yeah, it hardly scuffed the surface. I mean, it did scuff it. Let's try one more thing. I mean, just for fun. I'm not going to be able to do it this way because of time constraints, but let's put a little heat to it. See what we can come up with. I mean, why not? We've gotten all this way. Let's at least see what kind of impression it makes. Okay, well, you can kind of see it did an impression. It does have riffles, but they're not the kind of riffles I need. So we're going to have to step back 5 yards and take a punt here because this is not what we want. I mean, it's doing everything that I want it to do. It's just not going deep enough into the metal, which means I need a 50-ton press. Well, that's not going to happen, so we'll go ahead and keep thinking about this and how to make this right. Well, that was a fun project anyhow. It kept me busy for almost a whole day during these COVID times when almost nothing is walking in the front door. So at least I keep busy, and that's an important thing. Hey, this is Nick Collier, checking out.